With 1120 just around the corner, the Jizz has delivered again and is about to bring you the 10 best mid laners for this upcoming patch. And this isn't actually a 10-to-1 countdown. I'm going to simply name 10 champions, and it's up to you to decide which of these is going to be the most broken. Now, we will also give you the runes and items to run on these alphas and a free tip so you can win lane even harder. Now, make sure you subscribe to the channel and let's get into it. So the first champion we have to consider for the best mid laner of 1120 is of course Katarina. And Conqueror Katarina with Nash's Tooth and that Hextech Rocket Belt, is there a more snowbally mid laner in the game? And yes, you may be weak in the first couple of levels, but here's the thing guys, if you just sit back, let the enemy champion push into you and preserve your HP, guess what? When you hit level 3, your actual first power spike, it's very hard not to actually do well. And yes, in terms of your items, it's pretty much the same. Nash's Tooth, Hextech Rocket Belt, and the reason Nash's Tooth is your best first item is simply because all of its stats, the attack speed, the AP, the on-hit, these are getting pumped into your kit. So the attack speed goes into your ultimate, it helps for your wave clear as well, the AP goes into pretty much everything, and then the on-hit goes into your passive, Shumpo, and your ultimate as well. This makes it one of the strongest first item spikes in the game, and when you pair this with Sorcerer's Shoes, it's incredibly hard to stop you. But I'm also going to recommend another rune page, and this is amazing into squishy enemy champions and squishy teams in general. So if you don't want to go Conqueror, you can go with Electrocute, and this actually has a better win rate than the Conqueror page in high elo, so it's definitely worth showing you. But whatever rune page you pick, Katarina is certainly going to be one of the strongest mid laners in 1120. Now another assassin who's going to be incredibly good in 1120, this is Talon. So if you want to play an AD assassin, Talon is definitely going to be the best. At the moment in high elo, this champion has a 57% win rate, and next patch, because there are no nerfs to Talon or his items, you're going to have an absolute field day. Even though Talon's been nerfed multiple times this season, his synergy with Conqueror then Gore Drinker is just all too good. Even though some players might still go Prowler's Claw or Dustblade, yes, this makes you a bit more lethal, but when you do go in to try and assassinate someone, you're most likely going to die as well. So all you're doing is trading 1 for 1, if that. So that's where Gore Drinker really comes in. You still have enough damage to one-shot people, but you have the sustain and tankiness you need to actually survive these team fights and to escape the enemy team when they actually try to retaliate. If you follow this up with a Ghostblade, which got buffed a couple of patches ago, so it's now giving you flat ability haste, pair these two with Lucidity Boots and it is game over. Now just one tip for Talon, your passive is going to be everything, but it's important to understand that only your abilities can proc these passive marks. Now you can tell if an enemy champion has been marked by looking at the base of their character. They'll have a little triangle beneath them, and if this triangle has 3 marks, when you auto attack that target, it's going to consume the marks and make them bleed. This will do an insane amount of damage, especially in the early game, so try to always be conscious of your passive stacks. Now another incredibly strong mid laner in 1120, this is going to be Rumble. And Rumble has really taken off all because of that buff a couple of patches ago that saw your W's cooldown go to a flat 6 seconds, and this means that for mid lane Rumble, even though you're losing attack speed in the early laning phase from your passive, because you have your shield and the movement speed more often, this allows you to roam, this allows you to gap close to the enemy mid laner, this allows you to escape ganks and also mitigate damage because you're getting a shield more often. And I'm also going to give you one rune page that is going to take advantage of the recent Predator buff. And of course, Predator is your keystone, and in high elo Korea, this has a 64% win rate, this setup. So I want to give it to you guys to try out, but it's important to remember that the play style here is all about just shoving waves and then just roaming. You will have constant pressure on the map, constant pressure in the mid lane, and this playstyle just gives you more than one enemy champion to kill. You're not just restricted to the mid lane. Then for your items, Hextech Rocket Belt, Sonya's Hourglass, Void Staff, and you're pretty much good to go. Now another AP assassin, guys, who's been played a lot in high elo recently, and you will certainly see her at Worlds, this is LeBlanc. Because of all the buffs this season, LeBlanc is finally being picked on a regular basis by the best players in the world. Now why is LeBlanc so good? Well, it's quite simple. Your damage is now noticeable, you've always had good setup because of your chains, and you're also very hard to kill. Now you do kind of lack in the wave clear department, so if you are going to clear waves, guys, on LeBlanc, make sure your W, your distortion, hits all of the minions. You don't just want to hit 2 or 3 of them, try to hit all 6 or 7 and save you a lot more time so you can actually roam around the map and be an assassin. Now for your items, Luden's Tempest is always going to be your mythic item, and follow this up with a Cosmic Drive or Sonya's Hourglass depending on what you need for the game. If you're against an AD champion in the mid lane and a lot of attack damage generally, then Sonya's is going to be better, but if you're really snowballing and don't feel as if you need that resistance, then Cosmic Drive with the ability haste and the movement speed just enhances your assassin capabilities. So LeBlanc is certainly another champion we have to consider as one of the best mid laners, if not not the best for 1120. Now up next, we have another AD champion, and this is one of the newest champions on the Rift. This is Akshan. And for Akshan, because you have a Lucian passive up permanently, you also have a shield in your passive, and you have ridiculous damage output, it's really hard not to put him on this list. Now the build you really want to go on Akshan is starting with Immortal Shield Bow, building this into Wit's End, if you're against a magic damage mid laner that is, and then finishing this off with Ginsu's Rage Blade. Now in terms of your runes, Press the Attack is by far the best keystone, simply because it's capitalizing on that Lucian passive you have, and the damage you can do in those short trades. But just remember guys, if you are going to play Akshan, some people in lower elo like to do this. Putting 2 points in your E at level 3 is by far the best way to play this champion. Skilling your W, like it doesn't really do much. Really you want this when you return to lane or if you're going to move from the mid lane, so even in some games if you're staying in lane until level 5 or level 6, skilling your W is kind of pointless. So try to put these points in your E and Q and nothing is going to stop you. So what do we think? Is Akshan going to be the strongest in 1120? Now the next mid laner we have to think about this is Fizz, who has been buffed recently. His E's cooldown at rank 5 is now 2 seconds lower. This is huge because you max your Playful Trickster first, so you're accessing the cooldown a lot earlier in a game. Now it's also great because if you pair this with Lucidity Boots and the cooldown you build, whether it's in Zhonya's Hourglass, Leandra's Anguish, even Luden's Tempest, that E cooldown at level 9 onwards is just going to get lower and lower and lower. And before you play Fizz, one thing you have to do, this tip is a bit like the Akshan tip, is to put 2 points in your W at level 4. This sounds weird I know because you should be maxing your E, but you will still max your E at level 9, it's fine. Putting 2 points in your W gives you more magic damage early on and also gives you more mana refunded on those last hits. So really it just makes your generally weak early laning phase easier, and it's not like you're losing anything anyway because you're still maxing your E at level 9. Now in terms of your items, I know lots of Fizz players are going with Luden's Tempest. Leandra's Anguish I think is still the way to go. Because of your E now being on an 8-second cooldown at rank 5, Leandra's Anguish just amplifies that cooldown buff more than any other item. The flat ability haste, the ability haste in the mythic passive. This means that by the mid to late game your E will be on close to like a 4-second cooldown, which is just ridiculous for the amount of damage it does and for the untargeted ability it gives you. It's just too good to pass up on. And any Fizz mates, if you have tried Leandra's Anguish with this E buff, tell everyone else in the comments how broken this is. Now if you don't want to play one of these assassins or high damage dealers in the laning phase, one scaling champion you can certainly pick, this is Kayle, who still has one of the highest win rates in the mid lane, and the simple reason is that not enough people know how to punish you in lower elos, and also because with Nash's Tooth, just like Katarina, it's an extremely strong power spike now. The attack speed, the ability power, the on hit that gets pumped into your passive. Like if you don't kill a Kayle 5 times before level 11, she's going to take over the game and just solo carry it. Now it is true that she is more exploitable because of all the nerfs, especially to your magic resist, so if you are going into an AB champion it can be a little sketchy, but still a bit like Katarina, because your laning phase isn't exactly the strongest, if you just let the enemy champion perma push waves into you, you should be able to scale for free. Now it's also important to think about the enemy jungler and position away from them, so you don't want to be holding the same side they are, because really you have no escape, so if you do get jumped on you are most likely going to die. So if you can get to your Nash's 2 spike and level 11 free of charge, this is your main goal, and if you can do this, it's GG. Now a couple of days ago we released a Vex guide, and Vex is another champion we have to think about for the mid lane in 1120, simply because her damage output is insane and some of the actual mechanics in Vex are kind of nuts. The fear you have in your passive, the ultimate reset, it's pretty broken. This is why she's banned like 50% of the time. Once you do lock her in, you are on one of the strongest champions in the game. Now in terms of your build and your runes, of course Luden's Tempest, Horizon Focus, because of the passive it's easy to activate because of your CC and the range you have, and Sorcerer's Shoes just capitalizes more on the magic penetration. Now for your runes you have a couple of options. You always want to be taking Electrocute because it's just good for the laning phase, and then you can either take Ravenous Hunter or Ultimate Hunter in the last row. Ravenous Hunter is just better for the lane because it's giving you more lifesteal, but Ultimate Hunter is good if you think there's going to be a lot of fighting and kills in a game. This means you can stack this quickly and actually use more ultimates. And for your secondary tree, again you have a couple of options. You can go with Sorcery with Mana Flow, Band of Transcendence, or you can go with a full-on lane sustain setup with Biscuit Delivery and Time Warp Tonic. But before you play Vex guys, please understand that your passive, a bit like Talon, is pretty much everything. The more you play around this, the better you are going to do. It's also important to note that you can actually stack your passive quicker by hitting enemies, including minions, if they have Gloom on them. So if you land your E onto the minion wave and auto attack these minions, your passive is going to stack quicker. This is a great way to get more passes off, of course, and you will have way more pressure in the lane itself. And if any of you have played Vex since her release, do you think she's broken? Do you think she's garbage? Let me know in the comments. Now another champion a bit like Kayle guys, if you want to play a champion who's an amazing scaler in the game, but it's just easier to play, then this is Malzahar. Now the reason I say easier to play because there isn't really much to Malzahar. You just perma shove minion waves while holding onto your Q, just in case the enemy champions jump onto you, and once you hit level 6, that's really it. And Mouse, generally speaking, is the mid lane Malphite. Because of your ultimate, you're always going to be useful, so even if you are 0-2, 0-3 and you're just copying it, it doesn't really matter because of the utility your ultimate brings. Now for your items, of course, we have Leandri's Anguish as your mythic, then Rylai's, but for your boots, lots of people I know build Lucidity boots, go Sorcerer Shoes. The damage is actually unreal, and you don't really need that much cooldown if you are going to go with Leandri's. It's a bit overkill if you go Lucidity boots as well. So try out Sorcerer Shoes and you will be amazed by the actual damage you deal. And so will the enemy champions. Now the last champion, guys, we have to consider for the mid lane in 11-20. This is another point and clicky champion, and this of course is Annie, who has been so strong for so many patches now. Because of your range, because of your lowish cooldowns, because of your ultimate, a bit like Malzahar, it's impossible to stop Annie from actually having an impact in a game. But if you are going to play Annie, again, the tip is to just count your passive stacks. Remember that on the 4th stack, your next ability is going to stun a target, and you can actually see these stacks just under your HP bar. These dots will transform into bars to count your passive. So one trick you can do once you have 3 stacks is to use your E for the movement speed. And remember, as soon as you use your E on 3 stacks, you are going to have your stun ready. So you can quickly E and then use your ultimate or your Q. You're going to catch so many people off guard with this. So out of all these 10 mid laners, who do you think is going to be the best to pick in 11-20? Let me know in the comments. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like down below if you did enjoy the video. And also make sure on your way out to check out the GameLeap website at GameLeap.com, linked in the description and comments section for the best courses, guides, bot analyses of high elo games. Like if you legit want to improve, our website is all you need. So sign up, and until tomorrow's video, this has been the Jizz. Bye.